Welcome.
Follow suit the professor's example of having to stand and without using the mic. Just in case, if I retire soon, there is an opening seat within the Emory University. Jeff would be able to commend or not to commend me to the board. Well, first of all, Jeff, Molly, and dear colleagues, we have the who's who of Indonesian diaspora here tonight. Edward, of course, Bu Tivi, Bu Bibi, Pak Hesham, Pak Robert, and of course the Consul General and everybody and Bapak Ibu sekalian. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat malam and very good evening. First of all, let me say something about gamelan. Otherwise, I don't think we are fair to understand where gamelan is within Indonesia history and culture and great values. Gamelan has been around. Of course, we don't have the exact date, but easily close to 1,000 years. It was there during the beginning, even the pre-Buddhism kingdom of Java, pre-Hinduism kingdom, and of course, much earlier than the Islamic kingdoms. So before the 2 millennium ago, so just entering the first millennium, and you just imagine that the sophistication of Indonesia, but at that time we didn't have Indonesia. It was the Japanese culture and the Japanese kingdom that could already crafted the metal and made that musical instrument. That is amazing. And of course, the overall harmony of using the sound, the beautiful representation of the music. And it's been around for 1,000 years and much older than Indonesia itself. So yes, Indonesia as a modern country, from Sabang to Merauke, the most western to the most eastern. And by the way, the most western to the most eastern of Indonesia is just like from San Francisco to 200 miles off Boston in the Atlantic.
Wow.
So Indonesia from west to east is larger than the American continent. But of course, 3/4 of us is ocean or sea, water. And unlike other countries that consider water as the factor that separates land, Indonesia is the other way around. The water that connects the land. And that is part of us. So unlike any other nations in the world that call their country motherland, Indonesia call our country land and water, tanah air, because it's a one term. And that's only us. So if you want to find uniqueness of us, starting from gamelan to tanah air to the size of us and Indonesia establishment now, despite we have big challenges today, it's almost a miracle. Because 20 years ago, we were very much on the brink of economic collapse and political social disintegration. We, even at that time, were worried we would be the second Balkan countries, or Balkanized. There was a term of that. But 20 years since then, that was last April, we had the election that were presented by 81% turnout, translated into 155 more millions voters came to the ballot boxes.
Wow.
That makes, this is something that my colleagues at the State Department don't really like too much for me saying this. Indonesia now, officially, is the largest presidential democracy in the world.
Wow.
Because Americans would claim that too. Of course, in terms of the size of the population, yes. they are almost 80 million bigger than us. But in terms of turnout in election, no way 155 million Americans will come to the election, even next year probably. So we can claim that. So you need to update yourself before you can update your American friends. And I'm very worried if you don't understand it, you are not updated with your own country. And I'm very worried about that. And you don't understand the context and the real potential and the real contribution of Indonesia. So yes, of course, we should not take democracy for granted. The US should not take democracy for granted, even after 250 years of independence. Nobody should take anything for granted. We have to invest and reinvest and reinvest, and especially to our young generation. Because freedom, democracy, the human rights are not automatically transferred to the younger generation. You have to transfer it yourself. You have to re-educate. You have to update that within the context of the younger generation. So there is the Indonesian challenge itself. Yeah? So there is one. The second one is, of course, we celebrate this year the 70th year of Indonesia-US diplomatic relations. But I don't use the word diplomatic too much. I use just relations. Because now everybody is part of the diplomatic relations or diplomacy. So it's not just between governments or diplomats. It's everybody. Because like when you call Bu Vivi, here in Atlanta, people know she's the ambassador, not me. So as you can tell, we have many ambassadors, and rightly so. You think, or you can try to claim yourself, but unless other people have confidence in you that you are really performing as ambassador, then you're not. So we have that. But what is more important, again, many Indonesians didn't know this, and many Americans didn't have any clue. It's not the establishment of the diplomatic relations that was important. Even the prelude before that establishment, more important. Because after the proclamation of independence in 1945, Indonesia still had to struggle and fight for the international recognition of the independence. And because we had war, skirmishes and open war with the Dutch colonial government who wanted to return and recolonize Indonesia, then the United Nations established the Committee of Independence of Indonesia. It's the special good offices within the UN structure. And Indonesia selected and represented by Australia. And the Dutch represented by Belgium. And both Australia and Belgium represented or chose the US as the third party of the third party committee. In the beginning of the 1947, after the establishment, obviously US and the Netherlands were very much part of the ally that fought with the communism during the Cold War, post the World War II. So it was understandable that they took side to the Dutch position rather than the Indonesian side. But every single semester, they had to replace the chief negotiator, because despite the marching order from the State Department said that it should be favoring the Dutch position, then they moved to the Indonesian position. Because Indonesia fought hard for its independence, which, of course, some of the parts, including the Declaration of Independence, including the Bhinneka Tunggal Ika, which basically mean the same as E Pluribus Unum, unity and diversity. Because Indonesian founding fathers, no one of whom had ever went to the US to study, but all the inspirations come from this country. The Constitution, Declaration of Independence, even the national motto of the Bhinneka Tunggal Ika. And then now, in hindsight, I'm not surprised that they took side every single time as person to the Indonesian side. Until the end, the whole US formal position took the Indonesian side. And it was not only the administration. Congress that gave the alert or the reminder to the Dutch, unless you are committed to follow this process of transfer of independence, then we'll halt our Marshall Plan to you. It was the Congress of the United States. So, yes, it was that critical and important, but it was very few people understand this. And as if Americans or Indonesians are, what about Indonesia, US, what about? As if we are known, we knew to each other. So there is not. So let's put that into the perspective, and the contribution started as early as possible, as the 5 years of independence. So that would be the history. Now let's talk about the future of the economic in particular. But I have the risk of repeating what I'm going to say tomorrow then. But Jeff most probably won't be there, so I have to do it now to make sure that he would give a good comment to the board. Now, started with the trade war. I still call it trade skirmishes, because you really know what happened in the war. There is no more negotiation, and it's all zero-sum game. But now we still see people give good signal and then come to a negotiating table and move forward, although it's not easy. But I agree with you, Jeff. Whatever happened within the two countries, they will never go back before the pre-trade war situation. It's final on that. Now, what happened with the Indonesian situation vis-a-vis that, let's say, context? This is what happened. Indonesia, for many, many reasons, now is not part or not strongly part of a global value chain. So if the investment relocation coming out of China are trying to find substitute of China, and that has to be part of a strong global value chain, I don't think they will come to Indonesia, at least not very soon. But Indonesia, like you said, still an important producer of many manufacturing products. You said earlier, the textile and garment, the footwear, the electrical appliance, the rubber products, the toys, some, of course, accessories, decoration, that sort of thing, which in total easily reach $15 billion. Now, on that, actually, we don't need a lot of relocation from anywhere. It's more about expanding the current capacity and investing new capacity by the same people, or the same people with new partners, or any business model in between. So we are trying to do that. But nowadays, also the lesson learned from the China-US situation is trade will never be an issue of technical matters anymore. It will be central and significant part of geopolitical establishment or influence of any country, especially if it involves superpower like the US. So that's the reality, or the real geopolitical situation nowadays. So on that note, it is important to understand that we want to build much better and stronger multi-dimensional relations with the US. So yes, economic trade, but also political, also defense cooperation, and many others. And the last chapter that we see that Indonesia, through ASEAN, established the so-called ASEAN outlook on the Indo-Pacific. But quite different with other countries' concept. This is a concept which basically the enlargement of the concept of ASEAN that focus on ASEAN centrality, focus on ASEAN structure and governance, and promote economic development and prosperity, and focus on real programs, and is inclusive engagement for all. And the good thing about that, all other countries, including the US and China, support it. So it's Indonesia-led, but through ASEAN, and now ASEAN of itself has played much bigger role beyond its a traditional border to the Indo-Pacific. And we see now, with that type of leadership, the two sides even now expect ASEAN to play even much more important role. And this is where we try to bring in the implementing stage of this outlook, looking at how to build jointly the infrastructure and connectivity, interconnectivity investment, looking at the trade and many others. But one thing you mentioned about TPP, because of the situation that the US pulled out from that agreement, Indonesia, for the time being, has yet to join. Because we wanted to join when the US was in there, but with the current situation, we want to see what happened before we decide whether we want to join or not. But on the other hand, we are finalizing the so-called RCEP, the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership. It consists of the 10 ASEAN countries, plus Korea, Japan, China, India, Australia, New Zealand, which basically will become, hopefully by the end of this year, if not the beginning of New Year, the largest ever FTA or FTA-like agreement in the world. And this will or should be sustainable for the next 20 years because exactly the growth of the economy, the growth of the population, and the young demography. Indonesian median age, average age today is 29 years old. So we still have another 15 to 16 years of the so-called demographic bonus or dividend. However, going back to Edward's point, the dividend can become liability if the quality is not there.
That's right.
And on that note,
That's right.
it's also important not only the basic education, health, and other infrastructure need to be improved, but also the solution and the economic structure itself need to be opened and to give more opportunities for those otherwise left outside or behind. This is where now we have the blessed or the benefit of having the digital economy. So for opening an account, on the KYC, on the easiness, or on the aspect of getting access to financing, now even what used to be called as the non-bankable or non-bank in any standard now can get that access. So this is the real potential. Yes, human and education quality is very critical, but also we need to give access and improve the overall solution to them because they are not only a matter of socio-political equality, but as much as economic and growth potentials. Because just imagine if we give them and they still come a very low level of income growth perspective that they can bring to the whole economy of the country. So these are many spectrums that I hope I can share with all of us here and also update you because this is what I'm worried also with fellow Indonesians. They talk so much and sometimes enjoy talking too much on the bad side of the country. And as if they contribute a lot by doing that. While other nations, other people, other countries talk about the good side of Indonesia. So sometimes it's ironic. But again, it's not unique in the sense because I see the Americans are doing the same. Well, you know what happened. So that's always the other side of the democracy or the risk and consequences of democracy. You can say, you can talk, you can express anything. And because of that, you only focus on the bad things. and before you know it, you feel bad all the time. So this is not a criticism, this is a reality. But this reality is quite dangerous.
That's right.
Because then you feel bad about you feel bad about your country, and you are less confident about your future. And if it's not your future, who's there? So you better be careful about that. The fact of the matter, we are the largest presidential democracy in the world. We have transformed ourselves from the brink of collapse economically and political disintegration to that just 6 months ago. And everybody expects us to play a bigger role, political, geopolitical, stability, and also economic and overall global contribution. So it's up to you all, and of course me, if needed, to talk about the possibility and translate that into reality. And let's identify that potential and focus your positive energy on that. On the negative things, let people in Jakarta do that.